Hi Sophie, we're here, aren't we, as
Um,
ADHD coaches for ADHD Advocate. Personally, I've been in education for 25 years, 15 of those as a Senko and senior leader, working in both mainstream and private schools internationally, interestingly in Italy, which I know you're going to share in a minute.
yep.
And currently I'm working in a special school for ASD and ADHD students up to the ages of 16. Together, we also run the ADHD High School Success Program
Hmm.
for the academy, which is going really, really well. And this week is week two of the ADHD Empowerment Month LinkedIn Lives. So we're excited about delivering today ADHD, managing ADHD in the classroom and what that looks like.
Hmm.
So just to share with everybody, if you've got any questions, please put them in the chat at the end, and we'll be having a Q&A session on the 1st of November. Okay, but anyway, so if you'd like to introduce you and your experiences of Italy, particularly.
Yeah, so hello everyone. I actually spoke last week already, but I'll introduce myself again. I'm Sophie. I'm one of the coaches at the ADHD Advocate. And as Sarah said, we are leading the High School Success Program. Um, for the students that go through their GCSEs and A levels. But before that, I was a student myself. And I was a student back in Italy, which is where I come from. Uh, but the type of knowledge that probably now 15, 20 years ago there was in Italy about ADHD wasn't amazing. And now, actually, even if it's getting more and more known, it's still uh, a big taboo and there's quite a bit of judgment. Um, both externally, the school, but especially at school, where even for me, most of my teachers didn't really understand what it meant. That even if I was to study hours and hours, it wouldn't mean that I would remember what I studied, or because probably I wasn't concentrating quite as much. Uh, during in Italy, there's loads of tests. Basically, every week, every day of your school week, you could get asked questions by your teachers, and you could get a mark for it, and that mark would describe, well, would be added up to all the ones that you've got during your year and decide whether you would pass the year or not, which is different than England. But that continuous pressure was really, really hard for me as a student because I knew I had to study every single day. Uh, and then if I didn't remember something, see the frustration in the teacher and be like, I told you this last week. How have you not remembered? Or, things like that, which were really hard. Um, and let's not even start to speak about the support during the exams because it wasn't recognized, I wouldn't have any kind of support. Uh, and I was always one of the last ones to give any test during, the amount of time that we were allowed, or I would need extra time. And sometimes it would work. I mean, they would give me extra time, but others it was like, no, your time is gone. So if you have not answered questions, then we're going to mark you on whatever you've done. but that meant I already started rather than up to, I don't know, a certain number of points, I was already started much lower down. And so the consequence of all of this, with the, you know, having to get back at home and say, I did the test went this way because I didn't finish. And it's not that like my parents would tell me off, but they were like, how can we help you? What can we do? Because, it's not right for you as well. So these were the things that happened. Um, but I think there was not even understanding from the teachers on the way they spoke, not only to me, but to anyone in the class. And, having the empathy of not always be ready for the test that they were putting you on that day for whatever reason. If you didn't do it, you just didn't do it. Uh, and the results will be read aloud to everyone as well.
Mm.
So it was quite a lot of rejection sensitive dysphoria and be like, there you go. Another time where people know how badly I did, and they'll start to think I'm stupid and blah, 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 blah. And all the consequences that, come around when you're not satisfied about your results. So this is a bit, don't know if you wanted to ask me extra questions, Sarah, too.
No, and I think what's interesting is that I'd like to think that in England we're a little bit more forward with our understanding of ADHD, but as an educator, having been in the classroom as well as that senior leader, I know how difficult it can be when you've got a class of 30,
Yeah,
and employing the strategies that we know as a teacher we need to employ to support everybody. But definitely this session is about whoever's listening, and whether
mm,
you're a teacher, whether you're a student, whether you're a parent, strategies that can be put into place, that hopefully you'll identify would have helped you a lot.
mm,
Um, and I think that's what's really important, isn't it? That moving
yeah,
forward, and that's almost why you're here at ADHD Advocate, isn't it? And
yeah,
working with the academy, that you can support students in what you felt you didn't have when you were in
yeah,
school.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
100%. Yeah.
So perhaps I go through some of the strategies, and then you
Hmm.
can sort of let me know what you think about them and how they
Yep.
would have supported you. So what I felt is really important, particularly in the initial stages, is the ADHD student having a trusted adult in the school, someone who particularly understands them.
Mm,
And if you're at senior school, you're going to meet lots of different teachers. You haven't got the luxury of in the primary school where you have one teacher generally. And so senior school does become more challenging,
yeah.
uh, because not every teacher is going to have that same relationship with you. And if I go put my teacher hat on again, it's time element. I might only see the students once a week, so to
Yeah.
build up that relationship is really struggling. It's really difficult and
Mhm.
challenging. So trying to gain a trusted adult for the student is a step forward, that
Yeah.
they got somewhere that they can go to, when they are feeling overwhelmed, that they don't feel lost. It's having those consistent expectations as well in the classroom. Again, in senior school, your expectations can vary from one teacher to another, and that can be very confusing when you go from one lesson to another, and you've been understood or you've been given visual resources by one teacher, and then you go into another lesson and you're expected to just manage on your own
Yeah.
and to cope with it. So yeah, that's a very big challenge. Um, I think often in school, unfortunately, where students are told these are the rules and this is what my expectations. I'm sure you'd agree as an ADHDer. is a lot, there's a lot more buy-in if you're empowered and you're a part of that negotiation.
Yeah.
Let's manage these rules. Let's agree these rules together.
Yeah.
So again, looking at best practice where that can be done, that there's buy-in from everybody, rather than being told what you've got to do. You know, I've worked on this together, so I'm more empowered to do it myself. Modeling behavior as well, what you want to see as a teacher for the students. And I think, would you agree that there's that sort of mutual respect is really important, that
100%.
you know, if I respect you, then you'll respect me as a student.
Yeah.
And
Actually, you reminded me, but unfortunately, I found the teacher I could rely on my last year of high school. So, all the past years were quite hard. But once I found her, she even, helped me to find ways to try and relax during exams. But again, it was the last year. I mean, better than nothing, don't get me wrong, um but as well, she was one of those that actually would say, okay, we're going to make these tests where I'm going to test you, but you are going to decide when you're going to be tested. So just know that on day X, Y, and Z, there is going to be a test,
Mhm.
and I want 5 people there ready to be tested. And then that made things so much easier. So that's what you were saying, isn't it? About having the element of being part of the decision. Well, most of the others instead, it was like, well, we'll just have to have faith. And if I'm ready, good. If I'm not ready, well, then I'll have to deal with the consequences. But then,
Yeah,
sometimes consequences were much more unpleasant than what you hoped. So, yeah.
because those transitions are important, aren't they?
Mm,
You know, and again, you know, it's difficult. We're talking from so many different angles here.
yeah.
Um, and you know, appreciating that it's a busy time in schools, and not always possible to put everything into place. And I suppose you can look at it from the ADHD student's point of view. You know, those managing those transitions, but just being given a little bit of warning really helps, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To know what's coming, or if there's going to be a massive change in the school day,
Mm,
just trying to remember to give you that forward knowledge is it can solve a lot of overwhelm or prevent it happening.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's that proactive approach as opposed to the reactive when, you know, everything's happened and there's a bit of a meltdown going on.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah, another thing is staying calm in the classroom, you know, when being able to you know, if students, and again, I think for the students' point of view as well, when the teacher is calm and instructions are given in a and broken down in a calm way, it's a lot easier for them. um how when that isn't the case, I think it's good for students to be, and again, if they feel confident to do that, to be able to ask the teacher if they can have or repeat it, have their instructions repeated. I know that's not always easy. And as you've shared, sometimes the teachers gets frustrated that you haven't been able to listen.
Yeah.
Uh, but again, it's the strategies that you're using. Were you able to take rest breaks when you were at
Absolutely,
school?
absolutely not. We had nothing like it. So
Yeah.
it's
Which,
some it's something that I learned, as an adult, and I'm still trying to, manage and say, okay, it's time to
yeah.
take a break. And, you know, if I have a break, then I manage to reset and potentially be able to work on whatever there is to do in with a different perspective. But yeah, no, absolutely not.
No. And I think it's quite interesting as adults that we choose to work in ways that we do, don't we? We sit at our desk, we have our desks as we want. We could stand at our desk, we might sit on the floor, we might sit in
Mm,
share. Um, and I know there are some schools where they have thrown all the furniture out of the classroom and put in very, very different furniture, sofas, like breakfast bars, allowing students to work more creatively in a way that they would, because the standard school classroom setup doesn't necessarily agree with everybody, and I think that can be very restrictive.
Yeah,
uh,
from light as well, isn't it? Or how
from the
hot it
lighting.
was. Yeah.
Yeah, because we know how important the environment is for the student. So yeah, again, I know it's hard for students to be able to have that control within the classroom, but it's important, and parents that are listening as well, that they get on board with the school and try and get the school to understand if there are issues that are not, that are not being managed. So simple things like the rest breaks can make such a difference.
Mm.
If you're sitting in a class for an hour and the teacher's talking to you and you've switched off, then you've forgotten what you've got to do when you come to your independent work. And yeah, it's just managing that, isn't it?
Mm-mm.
Um,
100%.
so yeah, um, I know positive reinforcement is really important. Um, and again, a lot of the students that we work with are unfortunately often more used to negative reinforcement.
Yeah.
And I think it's what I'm very passionate about is that behavior is a means of communication. And I think that is particularly important for an ADHDer. It's understanding that you often can't help the way you're behaving, and you wouldn't be doing it on purpose. So it's different strategies that can be used in order to support that.
Mm.
Um, I don't know what you were like at school, whether you enjoyed rewards. Sometimes students don't like to be rewarded. Others love those stickers and points and, what can I get? But what I do know is it has to be instant. It can't be like, I'll give it to you next week. It's got to be there and then on the day.
I mean, as I said, it was 20 years ago. So, but I'm thinking even primary school, I don't think we had anything like, a positive sticker or anything like that.
No.
And at middle school and high school, because again, I'm Italian, so it's slightly different. I'm trying
Mm.
to recover memory. Well, sometimes when I did a bit better, I would have the professor saying, "Oh, well done this time." But that was about it. I don't think it's such a strong um approach in Italy, for example.
No.
So even now as an adult, when someone gives me a compliment, I'm like, how am I
Mm.
supposed to react? Because I'm not used to it in any way or form.
Yeah.
Um, but now that, for example, I started to accept them more
Mm.
and take them in, I can see what impact it has on my self-esteem, for example. And that is massive is as a a teenager who's going through all those hormones and setting their life up, having positive rewards then will
Mm.
have a massive
Yeah.
impact.
And as we know, sort of punitive behavior control is a lot easier
Mm,
to to give, and it's just taking that time really to get to know one another, student, teacher, parent. That whole triangulation really helps to support the student in the classroom,
yeah.
um, which if you can put in the time reaps rewards later down the line. Definitely seen that. Yeah, so again, I think when we've got to the point of overwhelm, then it's being able to go and have that quiet space, or being a, yeah, just somewhere where you can go, or using techniques that you can use to just let yourself chill a little bit, whether that's a breathing technique, or whether you've got a fiddle toy in class or something that can get you back on track again.
Yeah.
Because a lot of what we're talking about here is going to have to be we know it's out there and we know it happens, but you've got to start managing it yourself within the classroom because you might not be getting that support.
Yeah, exactly.
So
And even back then, if I had someone, because again, as I was saying, there was not much knowledge about ADHD. Um, if I would have known that there were techniques
yeah,
that could have helped, um, then, as you were saying, you can try and manage it on your own and, create your own space and time. And even if it's not always in the classroom, when you get back at home, and even while you're studying, that's when you can put them in place if for whatever reason during school there's
yeah.
less time even, because there's from one classroom to the other and just keep
Mm,
going. Where at home you might have a bit of time to say, okay, I'm really overwhelmed. I can
yeah.
my time. But yeah.
Yeah. And it's managing also that sort of timetable, isn't it? Because that's something we do with the high school success program,
Yeah.
is looking at the plan and the timetable. And I think that helps students to see what's coming up, what they've got to do. Um, Try and remember, or must remember to get the homework and things like that from that particular teacher. Um, and yes, sort of just trying to keep on top of it. Uh, Trying different strategies. If they don't work, that's okay. We can try something else. Um,
And
yeah,
try to visualize even how much time you have left before your exam, because we know how hard it is to manage time as ADHD is that you think you either have tons of space of time, and then you may not because, oh, I'm supposed to go to a birthday party, or oh, I know that going and do some kind of sport will help me, but then that is all time that you've lost to study, for example. So having it on the timesheet is quite helpful.
yes.
Um,
And also having the confidence to perhaps ask the teacher at the end of the lesson, look, I just missed out. Can you just go over that again?
yeah,
If for some whatever reason that it hasn't been broken down to as simply as you would have needed
needed.
it and you've
Yeah,
switched off, or there hasn't been the visual resources, try going to the teacher, asking them, hopefully they'll go over it again. If not, other advice is most of what you've learned is on YouTube somewhere, and it might be that you have to go home and reteach yourself. It's not the ideal situation at all, but better to get it in your head on the day rather than
just let it.
build up and then later down the line you think, oh, I just can't remember any of that.
Mm, yeah.
Because this is all part of it, isn't it, really?
Oh yeah.
Um, Ideally, lessons are interactive. They're not just, but that is often out of your control. So again, how can you make it interactive? Shouting out is often because you're impulsive, you want to get your answer out. That can be quite challenging for the ADHD, and challenging for the teacher at the same time. So it's a strategy that again I've used in the classroom is, perhaps you write your answer down so that at least you've shared it. You might not have shared it out loud, but you've shared it, you've written it down somewhere, and it might be that the teacher, you have that agreement with the teacher that they'll look at it at the end of the day, so you still feel noticed. Because it's getting it out, isn't it? You want to share it, but you can't necessarily because there's a lot of other students in the classroom.
Yeah. There's no time. If you were to listen everyone, you'd just finish your time, isn't it? So
Yeah. And I think that worked for me, like giving a notebook to, particularly students who have ADHD, that they can do that. Or a whiteboard even, or whatever, uh,
yeah.
share their answers at some point. It doesn't always work, but again, like all these strategies, um, it's worth a try. Uh,
Yeah. And
so
then the students and when the students can work with the teacher, they can find what works best and for the student. And
yeah. And again, I know it's both sides, but body doubling, as we know, works really well. And if you think of the format of the classroom and your ADHD student might be sitting at the back, that's a great place to switch off and go to sleep. Not literally, but you know what I mean.
Well,
Uh,
some people may also do that.
Obviously, yeah, yeah. But it's almost like, asking the teacher, can I come and sit near to you? Because it's not about the teacher sitting on you and keeping an eye on everything you're doing. It's just almost that close proximity can really be helpful. That you've just got someone there. And that's another one that can work. But again, both sides, because it's not always the teacher's got time to remember, but if the student feels confident to say, can I just come and sit there?
Yeah,
That would be a great situation.
yeah,
And just keeps student on track really, which we know works really well. I know you like body doubling, I do as well.
hmm
It doesn't make a
It
lot of difference.
really helps. Yeah, 100%.
So yeah, I think that's a lot of the strategies there that I well, and again, a big one for me is for parents that are listening, specialists, Senkos, teachers, that triangulation with everybody, that everybody's talking to each other, working together. So is there a strategy that works at home that we could try in school, vice versa? Are there strategies in school that we could suggest at home? So that, again, that's that consistent approach, isn't it?
Yeah,
Which is
100%.
which is what we're all working towards. And in an ideal world, that's what we'd achieve, but isn't always
Yeah,
that easy to do.
yeah,
But
yeah,
it's getting everybody on board with that sort of vision in mind, really.
yeah, yeah, 100%. And I'm thinking back to when I was at school, the fact that when my parents had started to share the fact that I was struggling because of my ADHD, because the communication from the teacher side, in my case, was
Mm,
not working because, it wasn't a thing.
mm,
Um, Obviously, immediately made an impact on how the communication between my parents and the teacher worked. And it creates a dynamic that then the student might indirectly or directly feel from and res have consequences from.
yeah.
So yeah, the communication part is, you know, very, very important.
Well, I think a
Because
student feels safe, don't they, when they
mm,
know that parents and teachers are working together,
yeah, and
or
not
and they're
against
part of
one
that.
another. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
for example, us as coaches as well, we speak with the parents as
Mm,
well, and because I speak about it because of the high school success program, but we see what the students can work with and cannot work with because we see it practically, and we have got I guess a kind of different not confidence with the student, but a different type of interaction. We're not their teacher. We're
yeah.
there just to support them. So the
Mm,
students are more happy to share their thoughts.
mm,
Uh, but as a student, because their parents at that point will know what works best for them, they they know that they can transfer it to the teacher, and then potentially the teacher could, as you were saying, put it in place in
yeah.
the classroom. And it's the parent knowing what works
Mm,
for the students, and oh, sorry, for the students, for their kids.
yeah. Yeah.
um
It's everyone having that dialogue, isn't it? Everyone
yeah,
talking really and taking just a little bit of time. A very small amount of time can have a huge
impact.
impact on the life of the ADHD in the classroom to be,
Mm,
yeah. And
yeah,
and tiny little things can make quite a big difference. It hasn't got to be a massive adaptations to the whole, day.
yeah,
Uh, just simple things like the transition periods or some visual resources and things like that. So
yeah, and the breaks.
the breaks and the movement breaks, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
I were you? Oh, so I was just thinking. Can you have like water in the classroom? Can you drink it
Yeah,
in
yeah, most
is
schools are
that
allowed.
allowed?
Yeah,
Okay. Because I
yeah.
was even thinking back in the days, for example, and I genuinely don't know how it is now uh, in Italy, but we couldn't even go and say, "Oh, I'm thirsty. Can I just go to the loo?" Because that was just extra time that you would have lost. Well, perhaps
Mm,
I that bit of water would have helped me to
yeah,
hydrate myself and things like that.
yeah.
So there is definitely, a difference between
Mm,
what it is, well, what it used to be and what is
yeah.
now, I
And the
hope.
same here, I think very much the
Yeah,
same here. So,
yeah,
yeah, but also I think going back to something you said right at the beginning, there is still pressure of exams and assessments and that often take over. So it's being able to manage that, everything else around that.
yeah,
Mm. Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, hopefully that's been useful. And any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll answer them later down the line in November the 1st.
November, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
November
yeah.
1st.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks,
All
everyone.
right. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.